Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle. Today we have with us Brett Snyder, who is president and founder of Cranky Concierge. Welcome to the program, Brett.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Of course, the obvious question is, what is a Cranky Concierge?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people wonder that when they see our name.
Yeah.
Our focus is actually on air travel assistance. So we can do everything from basic travel agent work to helping people book flights and do that. Also help people with finding award travel using their miles and things. But really the core of our service is that we provide flight monitoring. So when people sign up, we get all their flight information. We have a concierge or a team that monitors their flights and then steps in to help if something goes wrong. So, we'll say we're not cranky with you, we're cranky on your behalf in dealing with other people.
Oh, that's cool. But if there ever was a time you got cranky, then you would have a backup reason, and then you can just point to your name and then laugh about it, and then that helps break the ice too. So
that's true. Actually, that is something that we can lean on if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, in the 1 in 1,000 times that there is an element of crankiness, but 99.9% of the time we're just fine. But yeah, I love that name because it really does stick out, and I know that you get this question a lot too, but I can go to Expedia, I can go to Frontier, I can go to United.com. Why do I need your service? What is the need? And then if you can even give us some examples of, one time we had a client where they had this and we saved that, or what, that was kind of like a little case study.
Sure. Well, I mean, there are a couple different services that people can use us for, as I just mentioned. Look, if you're buying a ticket to Vegas for the weekend and you're just looking for the cheapest fare you can find, I would say don't use us because, we charge for our service, but also, finding flights to Vegas, you'd have just a handful of options and you can find them pretty easily with a third-party service. But when you start getting into international travel, it can make a huge difference to have someone who really can look at this for you. In particular, when you think about different airlines that work with each other, what ends up happening with the online travel agents is, there is a universe of millions of different flight options out there, but they're not always going to give you every option. They're going to try and cut it back so, they don't overwhelm you too much. But there are a lot of things you can just put together if you know how things work. And so, for example, we had a client that had a pretty uniquely challenging itinerary to fly from Phoenix to Dubrovnik and then back from Faro in Portugal. So not exactly the most traveled routes that are out there. We started just poking through, all right, which airlines fly there, which ones can we combine? And so it ended up being a combination of United, Aer Lingus, and JetBlue on the return. And these are things that these airlines work together. JetBlue and United don't work together, but they both work with Aer Lingus. And we ended up manually putting this together, and something you're not likely to find on these sites. But then there's our flight monitoring piece and our assistance, which is where we really stand out compared to something like an Expedia. If something goes wrong on your flight, you'll call someone at Expedia and probably be told, oh, you have to talk to the airline, or, oh, we can't help you, or if they can, it's going to cost you a bunch of money to change your flight or whatever it might be. They're not really in the business of helping when things go wrong. Some airlines do a fairly decent job, and they've tried to step up with automating, but the reality is you have people that say, look, I just need to get home. The airline's saying I can't do anything for 3 days. And so, just get me somewhere, get me close so I can get there. And so, we can do that. And then we also have a lot of contacts at airlines that, we can use if needed that customers can't get on their own. And we've done some pretty crazy things. Some that stood out long ago now is when that Iceland volcanic eruption occurred several years ago. And I mean, we had someone from LA who had to get to Nice for a competition. And we ended up getting that person from LA to Tel Aviv to Madrid, Madrid on a train to Barcelona, and then rented a car and drove up to Nice from there.
Wow.
That was a long time ago. No, they never would have figured that out.
No one would have. They would have got, and as your frustration level increases, I think that's when your mind kind of just starts going to mush, and then it's like you throw your hands up and you start thinking, cancel the whole thing, and maybe there would be monetary consequences or whatever the consequences of canceling, but I think that's a massive benefit. What about, it makes me think about your service for businesses that have travel departments, or maybe a business that doesn't have a travel department, but the employee tasked with setting up travel for a dozen or so employees, it's just the bane of their existence. Is that something that you're able to take over and relieve that for businesses? Do you have a program specifically for corporate?
Yeah, so it's really the latter more than the former, because and we call it our small business program. So it's the idea of companies that probably have someone that is spending half their time or more, an assistant, coordinating travel, doing all this, and we can go in there and say, look, we can provide better service because this is our expertise, and then you can free up the time for this person that should be doing something else. So, if you evaluate it that way, then it ends up making a lot of sense. But what we've really come across in the big business world is, these companies have travel departments, as you say. They have usually agencies that they partner with already. It's all about contracts and compliance. So it's, who are our preferred carriers and who do you have to fly and what are the rules and all this kind of stuff. And so they're kind of managing to the numbers and those types of things. And it's not an area that we want to be in. So it's really the small business guys where these companies care about, all right, we need to get our people where they need to go, make this happen, figure out how this is going to work.
And we've got someone tasked with the duty, but it's not a department, like you say. And if you pitched your services to one of the bigger companies that have a department of 3 or 4 people, they're just going, we do that. But for the smaller business, and 4, 5, 10, 15 employees, that person that's doing 10,000 tasks per month, this is just one of them, and it becomes this overwhelming thing. So I know that it's a convenience aspect. Is there potentially a money-saving aspect for these small businesses where you could come in and say, look, our fee is X because we have a business and we're going to do this for you, but many times our clients can save a little here, a little there, where it almost offsets what we're doing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so, we want clients that come to us, we don't want them coming in and saying, well, you have to save us as much money as we're going to pay you because we don't value your service at all. So we don't want to partner like that. We want someone who sees the value and understands it. That being said, we can save a bunch of money for people, and we have saved a bunch of money. One of my favorite things that we do with some clients here is we actually have a service we call Award Compare. A lot of companies will have their corporate Amex cards or whatever it is, and they earn their membership rewards points or whatever it might be. Sometimes if it's a small business, the founder wants to keep those and use them themselves, but other times they want to use it to reduce their cost of travel. And so we do that. We compare redemption options using miles with the paid cost. And then we can say, listen, for example, we had a client that's based in Nashville, and they had to go to Charlotte. And the round trip was something like, $900 for a last-minute ticket, whatever it was. And at the time, we looked and said, okay, well, you could use 4,500 British Airways Avios points. You can transfer from American Express, and then, you can do this for almost nothing using points. And so this is a good opportunity to save some money and do this. So that's a pretty unique service that we found a lot of people really like because it helps to keep their travel costs down. And it's things that they're not even going to think to be able to do. Like, okay, I have to transfer to British Airways and then redeem on American, and what do I have to do?
If you mention that to somebody, they logically would go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But then if you said, okay, now go do it, they freeze up because I don't know where to click on the website, and I don't know what to and fill out this form and request this and follow up with that. To me, when you I really I know I read I think even this week Seth Godin put out a blog post very similar to what we're talking about, which is you can do some things for people, but then when you can start doing some customized things, and then when you can have some almost like scarcity, like there's not a lot of people that can do this, but then when you can free up time for someone, that's an opportunity cost for that business, that small business, that person could go, hallelujah, I don't have to do most of this anymore other than manage the process, and now I'm able to now get this done, and that's either quality of life, or that even could be money-making things or money-saving things within the business because this is now mostly off of their plate.
Yeah, it's that, and it's also just making the travel process more comfortable too. I mean, there are some airlines that we can open up seat assignments that you might not get on your own if you're just a regular traveler. So you might be stuck in a middle seat, but we have the ability to open up a window or an aisle seat that you might not have had. So it's it's a lot of different things, but it's also just making travel itself more comfortable. And then the piece of if something does go wrong, knowing that you don't have to worry about it, that we have our people that are working on getting you where you need to go. You can just kind of sit there and we'll take care of it for you.
Yeah, and to me that's probably the biggest selling point is just it's being done for you, hands-free. So obviously, I'm sure you get this question a lot too, but for people that fly a lot and then maybe even they're calling into your business going, help, this flight got canceled, it kind of reminds me, the question is, why do flights get canceled and all of that mess happen? But it reminds me of when you're driving down the highway and you see bumper to bumper, you're almost at a stop and go, and then finally when the traffic lets up, you look around and there was no wreck, what causes things like that? It's almost like this invisible force. So what do you see in the airline industry for what causes all these delays when you can't really see something very apparent?
It can sometimes feel that way because the thing about the airline industry is that every airline is a network, and so something might be happening somewhere far, far away, but it's impacting you somewhere else where you've probably done this before where they say, well, your flight's delayed due to weather, and you look out the window and it's completely clear, and you say, what are you talking about? But, it's probably because you're in L.A. and you're flying to San Francisco, but your plane is coming from Dallas where there are massive thunderstorms, or maybe the plane is coming from Chicago, which is fine, but your flight crew is coming from Dallas, and they're delayed. So your plane's there, but the crew's not. So there's this giant puzzle piece of getting, the airplane and the crew to the right place at the right time, and then making sure that, once there is a weather issue or some other massive issue, then you run into problems of the FAA has mandated number of hours that crews are allowed to work, and so it's a giant puzzle for people to figure this out. But the thing that's funny about this, when you think about airline on-time performance, a really fantastic performance by an airline would be to get 90% of their flights where they're going on time. Mm-hmm. That would be a great result. But that still means that 1 out of 10 flights is delayed. So, this is something that's always going to be an issue because there's no way to account for all the different external forces that can slow things down. So there are always going to be delays of some sort. Fortunately, most airlines now have done better. United just had it's been crowing about saying it's had its best summer ever, and airlines are focusing more on the operation, which is good. But even when they focus on it, you're still going to have a lot of delays as an aggregate number of the thousands of flights that operate.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, and you hear that a lot in like business. Have you ever heard the statistic? Direct mail. Normally, it's a 0.5% response rate, but we can get you 2%, and people are like, "Yahoo, 2% response rate," and you're going, "But wait a minute, there's a 98% not response rate."
Yeah. Everything is about perspective, I guess.
Yeah. So would you say that your service helps more individuals or helps more of the small businesses like that we were discussing?
I'd say we tend to be split fairly evenly. We have fewer small business clients, but a lot more travelers, just because the sheer numbers. But we get a ton of individuals as well. I mean, our service is fairly unique in a world of the internet, right? Where we don't do online booking. These aren't automated messages. You're talking to a person, so it attracts people that are interested in that. And of course, automation is important. I mean, we're communicating with text messaging and emails, and we have built automated tools for our people to use to help fix problems. But the core premise is it's a personal interaction with someone, and that's something that has been important for our business. So that means that, a lot of times the super tech-savvy 22-year-old is not as interested in our service because they want to do things on their own, and that's fine. But then we do see people when they get particularly important trips. You're going to a wedding, or we have people when they go on cruises, they get really concerned, what's going to happen if I miss my cruise, if I'm delayed or canceled. So big life events, big international trips, maybe once-in-a-lifetime trip to Europe, Africa, something like that. Those are the kind of things that people of all ages just say, well, this is sort of like an insurance for me to have someone looking out for me. And so we see a pretty wide-ranging demographic that comes to us. And then what even adds to that a little more is we partner with regular travel agents. We partner with people who do ground experiences, focus on what you're going to do when you're there. And a lot of those travel agents, destination operators, things like that, they don't deal with air. They say, get your tickets to us, and then we'll take care of you when you get here. But now they've started partnering with us, and they say, okay, you can use this service, and it's more of an end-to-end offering that they can provide to people.
Yep. It's unbelievable how many ways you can come up with to do one thing, and in many times the more experience you have, the more creative and unique ways you can piece things together to accomplish something, and that's in your business, in business in general, in personal life. And I think that sometimes whatever the fee is, if you can rely on someone that takes it off your plate and they can maybe find a more simpler solution and maybe save a buck or two, now all of a sudden you've got a wonderful opportunity. So how can people learn more about your service and your business?
Sure. So the best place to go is crankyconcierge.com on our website. It has a calculator. You can tell us about your trip, and it'll tell you what the cost is. But just for flight monitoring alone, if you've already booked your flights and want someone to monitor them, it starts at $10 per person one way. So it's not that expensive. That's for a domestic trip. And then it goes up from there if you want to have us book your flights or redeem your miles for you, which is a more challenging and difficult process. But we can handle all that. So definitely go to crankyconcierge.com. We are on Facebook. We like to occasionally post updates of people we've helped, things we've done, usually trying to include tips for people that they can use on their own as well. So just things like, hey, we did this, think about this next time you get in this situation. We'll do that. And then we're on Twitter as well, both at Cranky Concierge.
Excellent. Well, it was wonderful getting to know you and your unique business, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.